Hi, everyone. Welcome to the International Black Summit Interview Podcast, season number 2. We are kicking off this second season with all of you tonight. For those of you who are familiar with the International Black Summit, you know that we are an organization that was created in 1991. And our purpose is to provide an opportunity for participants to bring into being their vision for the Black community and the world. If you are new to us and you'd like to find out more, I just invite you to check us out on our website at blacksummit.org, or you can go to any of our social media, our YouTube channel, Twitter, TikTok. Uh, we're all over the place. You can find us. So tonight we're kicking off season number 2 with a fantastic guest, Aloma Marquis, one of the co-founders of the International Black Summit. And I just want to say a little bit about Aloma Marquis and give you just a taste, just a small taste of who she is and what she brings and has brought to the International Black Summit over all of these years. And one of the reasons that we love having this podcast is the purpose is for us to really have an opportunity to engage with current and former facilitators and participants of the International Black Summit to find out about how they use the summit distinctions and summit tools in their lives, in their careers, and in their communities. So a little bit about Aloma Marquis. I'm just going to read her bio here. Aloma Marquis was born and raised in North Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1953 and attended several universities and colleges around the country, the United States, before graduating with a BA in political science and urban studies in 1986 from California State University at Dominguez Hills. After working for almost 15 years in the field of law enforcement, she left to honor her calling as a fine artist that initially surfaced at age 12. Eventually, she earned a Master's of Arts in painting with a minor emphasis in drawing in 2003 and a Master of Fine Arts in the same disciplines in 2005 from Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas, where she subsequently taught a variety of studio arts and art appreciation classes for almost 14 years before retiring in December 2019. In 1990, along with Pat Reed Porter, Marquis co-founded the International Black Summit. And the IBS is a safe space where people of Black African descent can explore what it means to be human and avail themselves of coursework and tools that can support themselves in bringing into being their visions for the Black community and the world. Aloma Marquis is also the founder and chief executive officer of Unleashed 100 LLC, which was formed in September 2020. And Unleashed 100 LLC is a transformational education and creativity company that specializes in faith-based personal life coaching, stone jar coaching, and business development coursework. Unleashed 100 also houses the Marquis Multimedia arm that manages the sales and development of her fine art practice, original drawings, mixed media works on board and paper, sculptures, handmade artist books, and installations. I'm really, really excited to invite Aloma to join me now and just for us to have a wonderful exploration into her initial participation in the creation of the International Black Summit, as well as how she has used the tools and distinctions of the International Black Summit in her life in all kinds of ways, in her community in all kinds of ways, in her career over the years. So Aloma, if you could join me now in our, what Glenn and I like to call our virtual studio. Unfortunately, those of you who have been with us before, you'll know that my co-host Glenn is missing. He's not able to be with us tonight, but he's with us in spirit. So Aloma and I will be engaging in this wonderful conversation together. So Joy, if you could set Aloma up to be able to turn on her video and join.
Yes, she's going to turn her video on.
You know, it's interesting. Over the years, I've had so many opportunities to hear from both Aloma and Pat about how they originally conceived of the idea of the International Black Summit. I'll just share a little bit about this while Aloma, um, uh, uh, as Aloma begins to join us once she's able to turn on her video. Um, and when I initially heard about it, it was just this interesting conversation of them being together. Oh, there she is, Aloma. There she is. Great. Welcome,
There
welcome.
you are.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I was just talking about the original creation of the International Black Summit, that first idea that you had with Pat Reed Porter. If you could say a little bit about that as we lead into actually looking at the declaration of the International Black Summit. So
Okay.
welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for asking me to be here with everybody tonight. And thank you everybody for coming. All of my friends are here. Well, back in 1990, I had just completed a course, landmark education course. It was 9 or 10 months this course. And well, I had completed it maybe a year before, as a matter of fact. Pat Reed Porter had just completed it. And once a month, you would have to journey to Houston from wherever you were. And she came to Houston and she stayed at my townhome. And I had never met Pat before that course. And I was out of town, as a matter of fact, when she came the first weekend. I just left my keys at the Houston Center and said, okay, this human being who's staying at my house, here are the keys. And I was in the FBI at the time. So that was a breakthrough for me to trust anybody enough to let some complete stranger stay in my house. And so that's how Pat and I met. I said, this tickles me every time I think about it.
I still don't know if I have that kind of trust to let a complete stranger stay in my house. Like, here's the keys to my house. Go knock yourself out. I don't know if I have that kind of trust. That's pretty amazing.
Especially for this one. And so 9 times, Pat would come down once a month for each session of this particular course. And at the end of it, it was a graduation. And so Lindsay, her husband at the time, who has now passed on a while ago, he was mayor of Highland Park, or was he becoming the mayor of Highland Park? One of the two. I think he was actually, no, he was campaigning to become mayor of Highland Park, Michigan, where Pat lived, Highland Park, Detroit. And so he came and, and they stayed, and my then husband and I were separating. So they came, stayed with us. And on the day of Pat's graduation, we had just a little ceremony. And then after that, we all congregated at a restaurant. It was Papado's restaurant on Westheimer, and I think it was Fountain View is where it was located. And it was a big group of us. And the thing that was really amazing about all of this is that course had probably the highest number of people of African descent who have ever participated in it.
Interesting.
And I was just shocked. I had no idea that there were this many graduates of that particular course. So we all got together at Papado's, and while we were waiting for a table at the bar, because there were, oh gosh, it must have been 12 of us, something like that. And we were waiting for a table. And just to let me back up a little bit, between my leaving my home and going to the restaurant wasn't that far, but Pat and I solved every single problem on the planet.
Okay. You solved every problem on the planet.
Every problem on the planet.
So why do we still have some problems, Aloma?
Well, that's because people went out and created new ones. So, I just got to thinking, and it was so great to have a conversation with somebody, you had similar tools and like minds and like commitments, to have a conversation, having conversations for possibility.
So let
So
me ask you this. What was the
anything.
problem that the International Black Summit was designed to solve? Was it one of the things that was designed to solve one of those multiple problems
Well,
you were
not
solving?
actually. No, for my, for myself, when I originally got to the restaurant and just, I was so, oh gosh, invigorated and so excited and so full of energy just by being in conversation with Pat. I asked everybody to gather around and I said, this is what I want. And this will answer your question, I hope. I want a whole room full of Black folk who have done this work. Get in the room, close the door, because we have tools to handle our individual stuff. Get in the room, close the door.
And
And
this work, I just want to clarify, at the time,
it was
at the
landmark.
beginning, yeah, it was actually
Landmark.
having completed the landmark forum.
Exactly. That was
Got you.
the course that she was graduating from was another course called Productivity, Service, and Wellbeing. And I just said, will you play with me? That was it. Because I saw it wasn't to solve a particular problem. Since I was 4, just going back and looking at my life and assessing my life and cataloging my life and just investigating my life, I realized that I've had a core vision since I was 4 to unleash my God-given potential. And to have all, and that is my vision, my personal vision that I've codified, a world where all needs are met and God-given potential unleashed. I couldn't have come up with that, encapsulated that in language when I was 4.
Great vision. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tell you, since I was 4, I can pinpoint the minute that it started to coalesce as that. And I said, okay, these are the people. This is the opportunity. It's, it was one of those things. If I miss this, I don't know if I'll ever get another opportunity with people so equipped and really, really so on fire for serving other people. Because everybody in those courses that I had encountered had some type of commitment like that to serve people, serve community. And that was really it. It was to provide a space where people could encounter, investigate their humanity, and remove obstacles, not necessarily everyone, but whatever prevented them from unleashing their God-given potential, whatever they were called to do, whatever that was. That was none of my business. Unleashing it, providing what I was called to do is provide a space where people could free themselves up so that they could dive into, formulate, fulfill, and implement a vision.
That's so powerful. It's interesting, as somebody who has participated in the International Black Summit, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of examples that I know of people who have been able to use the International Black Summit to do just that. To free themselves up so that they can fulfill on what they're committed to in their lives, and so that they can fulfill on their visions or begin the journey to fulfill on their visions. Yeah.
And one of the
amazing
things that we discern, visions, when everybody can see themselves in, say, my particular vision or yours, then you've got there's a good chance you've got an authentic vision. And it may take more than a lifetime to fulfill it. And upon, my death, it doesn't mean I didn't fulfill it because I died. It's so expansive. It can include anybody at any stage, at any time, in any place. So yeah, that was my original intention for this summit and still is.
interesting. It's like Martin Luther King said, right? With his vision, I may not get there with you, but it doesn't mean that he wasn't the creator of the holder of that vision at that time.
And in spirit, in some way, he is getting there with anybody who just, puts a toe forward in furtherance of implementing their vision. He's there, his spirit is there. So, that's the faith that had me ask people to come. And those were the words I used, come play with me. I had no idea what what it looked like or anything. Not, what did I know? I just knew that Spirit tapped me on the shoulder and said, ask the question, will you fly? Will you do this thing? And
So what was the connection to, because my understanding was that it was initially started in a conversation about Black men and Black women. So
yeah,
what was the connection to the conversation about Black men and Black women, and then this outgrowth into the summit, which is not specifically about the relationships between Black men and Black women in particular?
that was Pat's commitment was really about empowering relationships between Black men and Black women. My vision, as I shared with you, was what I just shared, providing space where people could do what they needed to do. And that particular vision, yep, get after it. Really, Black men and Black women, yep, this is the place to come do that, to come work, create what there is for you to create, to get clear and clear yourself so that you can hear what life and the Spirit's saying to you. Because one of the summits, it might have been the second one in Highland Park. It was entirely about that. And there were,
I didn't know
yes,
that.
yes. And there were breakthroughs. Oh, I can't even begin to tell you the conversation, the way, ways in which people got healed. And I assert that out of those conversations, particularly in that summit, there was generational healing happening.
Can you give me a flavor of that as somebody who was not there back in 1991 and 1992, and like that particular summit when people were having those kinds of breakthroughs, particularly specifically speaking to the relationship between Black men and Black women? Do you recall sort of some of those examples? Or
Well, and I may get things, I promise you, I will get things out of order, not may get things out of order, I will. In the creation of the summit to begin with, and the first summit out of which the declaration came, there were major conversations that bubbled up to the surface where people had the room just to say what was so. And a great deal of them, needless to say, centered around relationships. We're human beings because that's what we have, that's who we are. And that progression, it just got clear that was the conversation that needed to be had, and it just went that way. And at this particular summit, people stood up and they shared from their lives about their relationships, the condition of them, their longings for things that hadn't been said, things that we've been carrying along as burden for generations. And the enmities that sometimes existed between Black men and Black women individually, and how those enmities got created. Like they're not givens, they're conversations and behaviors that got created. And that one of the pivotal moments was when the brothers in the room, got all of them. See, it may be a little out of whack, but this was the sense I have remembering it. Put us in the middle, all the women. We didn't know what was going on. Put all of us in the middle, and they ringed themselves around us.
a beautiful image.
And they called us queens.
Are you the one who coined calling people queens?
No, not me. I don't know who that was, but God bless them, whoever it was. And they celebrated us as queens. I am talking acknowledgement up one side, down the other side, inside and out, round and round. I mean, and that was such a huge breakthrough. And, we in turn gathered the brothers together and acknowledged them for everything, in the face of everything that Black men and Black women had to deal with. And we started, and one of the things I remember, this was my experience, that a spirit of forgiveness began to be present. that you could ask for and get forgiveness, not only for just individual things, just a class, asking for and seeking and giving forgiveness on behalf of a group of people. It was just extraordinary.
I am a little bit flabbergasted that I have never heard this story before. I've heard so many stories from the history of different annual summit events. I've never heard that one before, and it's shockingly beautiful to me. And what I'm really present to is the leadership of the men to initiate that conversation by starting the conversation, placing the women in the middle and taking their stand as men around the circle, holding the community and leading that conversation. And then women then being, able to drop into a space where they could then reciprocate. Do you think that that conversation would have been able to have been triggered by the women in the room, or do you think it was necessary for the men to initiate that conversation?
I don't know that it's an either or. It was the conversations, the space of the summit, is one of integrity and being true to oneself as one's word, keeping your word, that type of thing, and telling the truth. In a later summit, one of the distinctions is the stank naked truth, not stink, stank. It's a whole different order.
One of my favorite distinctions.
It's one of my favorites. Stank naked truth. I use that one to the bone. And in that space, things came up. People were telling it. And so many people were telling the stank naked truth about their relationships, that I think that spirit just coalesced in the room. And it wasn't as though one group, a group of people had to or didn't. It just coalesced. And because there were some volatile moments before then. It was history that had to come up, and it came up and had to be spoken about. And I mean, it was spoken about to the bone. So being able to be with, there's a book that I really love, Arnold, what is his name? Mendel, Sitting in the Fire. One has to be able to sit in the fire of conflict and let it burn until it burns itself out, till there's nothing left of it but ashes. And that's what happened in the room. It was that the ability to sit in the fire of centuries of relationship. And, given our history as a betrayed and enslaved people, there were a lot to say about relationships over time. So how things like that seem to happen in the summit, at least this is how I experience it, is that, I just say I credit it all to the Holy Spirit. That's where I come from. And that spirit just arises and people say yes or no to it. And enough people said yes and just went with it, not knowing what the outcome was going to be. It was a self-organizing occurrence in the moment. No predicting it, none of that.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there for that particular experience, but the summit annual event is definitely an experience. And so I have experienced similar types of transformative moments at different annual summits that I've attended over the years. And when you talk about there being a particular energy, a particular vibration, a space that you call the Holy Spirit that other people may call something else, but a space that shows up, a divine direction that shows up in the space and moves us all as a unit and as a community to a whole new realm. So Yeah, it's one of the beautiful things of the International Black Summit, and it's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to explain to people who have never experienced it what that annual summit event is like,
Mm,
because it's so much in that space that is not a space that most of us in regular life spend a lot of time in. Yeah.
yes.
So let me
Uh,
ask you, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I could talk
So
forever. So you go.
So I think this would be a good time to actually generate the declaration of the International Black Summit. Like, as you said, you engaged with in this conversation with Patricia Reed Porter, and you created a conversation that led to the first International Black Summit annual event. And at that event, that first event, the declaration of the International Black Summit was created.
Yes.
So I just think it would be great to just ground ourselves in that declaration. Joy, is it possible to bring that declaration up on screen? Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Aloma, would you be willing to generate that
Or
declaration?
the Declaration of the International Black Summit. We declare ourselves, our community, and all communities whole and complete. There is nothing to do except be. We assert that we are responsible for generating community as possibility and distinction. We listen for and grant being to the possibility and creation of unpredictable results. Our conversation of, about, and for those of African descent is one of power, self-generation, abundance, responsibility, unity, and integrity, with the possibility of being. We stand for the expression of our spirituality, ending the murders of our men, women, and children, building economies responsible for funding our community, maintaining wellness of being in our bodies, providing human services, establishing nurturing relationships, altering the conversation of who we are in the media, empowering our youth. We declare that our community manifests itself in the world as a contribution in the transformation of the universe. Atlanta, Georgia, October 7th, 1991, to the north, south, the east, and the west, within and without, wherever people of African descent reside. A moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
You um so I want to ask you, looking at that declaration and your experience with the International Black Summit over the years, do you have a favorite part of the declaration or a favorite tool or distinction from the International Black Summit that you tend to lean on more than others?
well, the allowing for the possibility and creation of unpredictable results. I
Mm.
lean on that one quite a bit, quite a bit. And um, let's
And how
see.
do you use that one? How do you use that one? Like in
Oh
your
my
life, how
God.
does it show up?
It's in the face of whatever some circumstance that's difficult, and it may be mightily so. So I'm a fine artist. I've been a fine artist since I was conceived, and knew about it. Come really to find out that that was so when I was 12. So the listening for being in the arts, a person who is a practitioner of any of the arts, is not a good one. You know, it's generally what my mother had been socialized to believe. Wasn't She didn't make it up, not mad at her. No, you can't do that, you'll starve.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, I'm not the only child who in the history of humankind who's ever heard that said to them.
Absolutely.
So, and you know, that was upsetting. And you know, as a matter of fact, now you know, afterwards I was shell shocked that that she said that, and I didn't even say anything because I couldn't speak after she said it. The only thing I vaguely remember, and I really, it was like literally my head was turned backwards, eyes, vision started tracking funny. I mean, my molecules were blown apart. But I was never angry at her because I understood she was doing her best to protect her baby. But I now, I just lately in the past month or so, a memory came up. You know, I remember going upstairs now to my bedroom and sitting on the edge of the bed and crying. And it spent a good portion of my life up until, what was it? When did I leave the Bureau? 95, 96, something like that. And I set out on the journey a few times and then stopped. It stopped, started twice. And the last time was in either 95 or 96. And, the listening hadn't changed, still hasn't, for being a person in the arts. That's your calling. So, as I share with people, I tell people being an artist, like a lot of vocations, has its challenges, has its highs and lows. The most difficult part of it is not being an artist, it's the conversations that people have about artists. Art. That is the most difficult part of being an artist. That causes the most friction and blockages. Are those conversations?
What are these conversations? I mean, the conversation that you can't make an income. Okay.
Yes, you'll starve. Say, okay, if you're an artist, that must mean you have the morals of an alley cat.
Oh, I'm not familiar with
that's
that
one of them. And something wrong with you? Something.
Wow.
Artists are crazy. You gotta watch those people. There's something wrong with them. And suspicion of creativity. We don't live in a society that has a whole lot of regard for individual creativity. So there's a lot of nonsense. And I did research on it before I embarked for the last time. Those conversations literally are thousands of years old. They're about 5,000 to 6,000 years old. And I said, dang, Wayne, this is what there's nothing even honest about them. These are just recycled conversations that people have and enroll people into generation after generation. And when I set out, I said, okay, I'm doing, this is it. If I don't do this, I am going literally, I knew I was going to get sick and die if I denied who I really was one more time. And so relying on the possibility and creation of unpredictable results in the face of all of those conversations and earning a living in a market economy where everything is a commodity. Your soul, everything's for sale. And the friction that there is between creating work that's honestly honest, in that it's honestly what is there to be said, however it is to be said, and the marketplace where will it sell. So there's that friction that's frequently there for a lot of creatives, in whatever discipline that happens to be. So when I'm out being an artist, as well as I knew before I went back to school, and I would get various colored bills. I said, oh, well, and I started to, when utility bills. I said, oh, well, look at that. This one's yellow. That's really, I like that. I like that color yellow. So that's what I did with it. Oh, this is a great shade of a tint of red, pink. So, those things happen. So, and seem like proof that you shouldn't do that. Not as if anybody else that's never happened to, right? And so in the face of things like that, standing in using the tools to be able to be with things as they are and still standing in a possibility in the face of no agreement, that unpredictable results will show up. And I have some proof of just insane things that happen, standing, absolutely insane things, crystal clear that the Lord did it. Because nobody else could do crazy stuff that happens for me in honoring who I'm originally created to be. So that's one that is consistent, even when it's not conscious. That's the place where I tend to stand most often. And even community service work was there. Okay, people write off this whole group of people that live here. Well, I'm standing for the possibility and creation of unpredictable results happening here. I don't care.
Yes. You know, it's as you speak, and first of all, your passion comes across. And the power of the distinction, like what becomes possible, like how close that distinction is to possibility. Like by being able to stand in the notion or idea of unpredictable results, how freeing that is or can be, given the boxes most of us are socialized into. And you talk about us, these conversations being thousands, 5,000, however many thousands of years old. And you talk about trying to be an artist in the market economy. The first place my mind went was 5,000 years old. So we're talking, you know, Roman civilization and Greek civilization, quote unquote, potentially being part of the start of that conversation.
It was absolutely that. And something I might add, you know, you just made me think of this, standing in this possibility when I was scared to death. It isn't that the fear goes away. It isn't that my mind didn't take me over. Standing there while I'm scared to death and persisting, which is the definition of courage, being scared and doing it anyway. But that's what I want people to know.
Freedom, freedom. You're hearing that, folks? Anybody who's listening or watching, you get access to freedom through these tools in the International Black Summit. You know, as somebody who also changed careers, right? I was a corporate lawyer, and after participating in the International Black Summit for a couple of years, I changed careers and I left that, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I didn't work for a year, although I had access to resource because I was laid off. So I had access to my severance. But I used that International Black Summit process and tools to get clear on what I was going to create next, and to not have as much fear as I would have had as I went through that transition process, being able to use the tools and distinction, and also to be able to lean on the community, like to be able to call somebody up and clear with somebody, you know, that kind of thing.
And yeah, that is so key. I had so much support from everybody in the summit. I just had so much support. I can't even begin to tell you how invaluable that is, you know, because we don't do life alone. I don't care who you are. And to have people, I could just say where I was, exactly how I was. And when I didn't have my, say, wind underneath your wings, and my poor little wings were tired, just worn out, they couldn't flap anymore. I had people underneath moving my arms and flapping my wings for me when I couldn't. So, you know, having a community, and that means so much in the face of the conversations about people of Black African descent, all of the lies that have been told about us, you know, they don't get together, they can't do this, they don't support, they aren't unified, and flew in the face of all of those lies. So that's what some of what the summit have made available, and not just to me. My intention is that, you know, everybody would have access to that. Anybody would have access to that.
You talked a little bit about community and standing for community. Just curious, again, looking at the distinctions and tools. which tools or distinctions have you used more often when you're engaging with community?
Oh, goodness gracious. One of them that the tools, power and self-generation. So look, it's coming from a place of power and self-generation. And our conversations of, for, and about people of African descent is one of power.
Mm.
And particularly when working with people who are very, very much disempowered. I mean, generationally have conversations and then the experiences in line with that can't do anything. So standing in a place that are powerful, period,
Mm-hmm.
when there's no evidence for it.
Right.
And coupling that with unpredictable results. And one of the most powerful distinctions for me still is that of clearing. Oh my goodness. And I have no problem calling up one of my summit team members. Okay, you just need to get this. You just listen. You need to just say this and just let it rip. And then
right.
when I asked, do you hear anything? And I had one of those conversations yesterday. And, it was as if this person has been tracking with me in my spirit the whole time, just like almost in my hip pocket. And the conversation was right in line with what has been the Lord work that the Lord is doing in my psyche and my spirit and my body. I mean, she was right in step with it. And clearing, so I got a chance to say what was how things really seem. This is how it seems to get clear about, I could play back and see on the screen what I'm saying to myself. And I discern there are things that I was saying at the subconscious level. I got clear about what those were, because those are the things that really run our shows, that run our lives. It's not the conscious mind that does as much as the unconscious. And got clear about that and made some declarations, got really clear and got to see where I have not been willing to be responsible in particular areas. And I got to be able to say that out loud to another human being, and no judgment came back. And I was at a place where at that point, getting clear and this person created a space, a clearing noun, so that I could clear verb. So it's this, noun and a verb. I could look at it squarely, the stank naked truth of it, and I could choose. It wasn't that I had to, no shoulds, none of it. It was just yes, no.
It's interesting, just a little bit about clearing, because I feel like it would be for somebody who's not familiar with clearing and who's, listening to this conversation. I think it's possible to think that clearing is like venting,
Yes.
when people just come and vent, but it's not the same. And
Not
venting has its value, don't get me wrong. But clearing is speaking. Venting is just speaking. It's just like whatever. And it's often speaking with no self-reflection. It's often speaking with no accountability or responsibility or self-awareness or, like that.
Yes.
Whereas clearing is speaking with an intention.
Yes.
It's an intention to get clear for yourself, right? And so to be able to generate that clarity for yourself so that we can make our way through the noise in our minds, the noise in the world, so that we can then be clear in our intentions and our actions and move forward. And you talked about being able to take responsibility and be able to see where you were avoiding responsibility and get clear and see that and have that self-awareness so that you could you could then choose or not, but you would be conscious.
Yes.
So there's a level of consciousness that clearing brings that venting doesn't necessarily bring.
Doesn't really. And you may vent as part of, as you say, part of the process, and some of it may be venting. And what I like the way you said that, no, clearing is being in communication, coming from a commitment.
Yes.
A commitment to actually life in its broadest sense, coming from a commitment. Because I was clear that I had to be clear. I had to get clear. That was just it. I had to get clear. I was committed to seeing the truth of it, whatever it was. And so that set up the dynamics where when I spoke, I wasn't just talking. Here's another summit distinction: talking versus sharing. Most of the time we talk, just talk. And I'm not making that wrong. No, we talk. There's more talking in the world than there is genuine sharing. So sharing is me making myself, when I share, I am making myself vulnerable, taking the masks off, letting the force field down, and sharing with someone what's really so. And the key to it is vulnerability. And it's still coming when it's authentic, when it's sharing, as opposed to just talking about a thing. So when I'm talking, it's frequently we very descriptive in our speaking, and we start using third person pronouns like, well, it's like this when you get to this thing and then you do that. Well, no, sharing is I, all I statements. And that allows for the possibility of transformation to take place. We're talking around the thing, describing it. No, that won't get you there. It just won't. It wasn't designed for that. Talking can lead you to sharing. But yeah, so those are some of my go-to, ingrained in me, now conscious, it's part of my psyche, distinctions.
Question for you, when you talk about using the distinctions of power and self-generation when working in community, particularly when you're working in communities that have perhaps been marginalized or disempowered, have you come across any resistance from members of those communities around the word power? Because I've noticed sometimes that I come up against resistance in the sense that some people think of the word power or people with power, and they collapse it with oppressors. And so, I'm just wondering, because I've sometimes had people not willing to step into power or the word, or see themselves as powerful, because they automatically think that means that they are oppressive or an oppressor. Has that shown up for you at all?
And I get the distinction, having the distinction between power and force. So what we most our experience is that of force, being coerced into something or threatened into something. And that's generally what power is equated to. Genuine power is because I didn't use the word power. It's one thing, I never used it. Never used the word power. What one particular community where I was really blessed and privileged to work was a part of town here in Nacogdoches, public housing community. I never knew the place was there. That's how invisible they were. Just about anybody who became part of working with the residents there had no idea. And they might have lived in the town most or all of their lives that they were even there. That's how invisible these people were. And I went, however I got there, and the thing that was present to me who I was that God was present. And when I set foot on it, I remember it felt God's presence was it was palpable, so powerful, as though it was growing up out of the ground. And there was no physical evidence for it. And if I said that to anybody, they just, think I'd lost it. So that was the place from where I came. I stood and came from that particular place. And going into the some community members, one young lady, her home, and just being present. Being present is another summit distinction that I rely on a lot. Being present and noticing when I'm not. All I had to listen, because I figured now I didn't put it this way until you said what you said. Now, if I look back on that experience, I experienced myself as being, oh goodness gracious, like a lightning rod. This thing that sticks up out of the top of the building so that it will attract a bolt of lightning and direct it down to the ground where it won't do any harm. I sensed I would be led to the power in the place, people who had it, authentic power. I would be led to it. I would be led to them. And I prayed that the Lord would have us meet. And that's exactly what happened. I met some women. I went, okay, I know who's running this place. and they had authentic power and vision. It wasn't force. So being a clearing for genuine power to show up. I'm framing it this way now that we're having this conversation. Being the clearing for that allowed, I say, me to be available, to be attracted to, and then attracted to me, and to be led to the locus of that power. And it happened consistently. And, everybody's got power. It's just a matter, do you know? And the difference between power and force and how you use it.
Absolutely. So interesting. All that I'm learning about you tonight, Aloma. Question for you. Do you have a favorite annual summit that you attended?
Jiminy, good heaven. I don't know. Do I have a favorite? That's hard. The one in South Africa.
Okay. What year was that? Do you recall?
Would ask me.
I know it was the 1990s.
96, was it maybe?
Okay, mid 90s, we'll say. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 1996. That one, and the Highland Park one, and then the one in Philly.
And then every year after that.
I can't put my hand on a favorite, but that one and the Highland Park one stood out. And the thing about the Johannesburg one, that was my first and only time so far that I've been to the continent. And I remember stepping off the plane and stepping onto the ground. It was experience like none other. My ancestors likely came from either Central or West Africa. It didn't matter to me. Right. My feet were on the soil of the continent.
I had a similar experience my first time to Africa, which was East Africa, which again, my ancestors likely are not from. And I had a similar experience stepping down into East Africa. So
that was, and the other thing that is memorable about that particular summit, and the one in Brazil too, is that there is a woman, and I'm going to try to remember her name or pronounce it, but she was one of those people who had power, and she had a vision. I don't know how she heard about the summit going on, and she worked with young people from the streets, but she brought a whole bunch. It had to be 15 or so young people, none of whom could speak English. And so they ended up being a youth summit, coterminous, with simultaneous with the adult summit. and using art as a tool. I didn't do this. The people, whoever was managing it, managed it, but used art as a tool. And they got to speak their lives through pictures. And the language was never, ever a barrier, ever. And at the end of it, you know, she reported how the young people felt healed. You know, they got healing from that because, you know, really violent. A lot of them were orphaned because of AIDS and whatnot. I mean, you know, so it was rough. It was rough. And they got healing from that. And I was just so happy. I just about out of my mind, deliriously happy about that. So that was if I remember anything about a summit, that touched me deeply. Couldn't be more grateful for it.
You know, that's a pretty good segue into your art. You're talking here about how art was used by the facilitators of the Youth Summit in Brazil, which I think was 2003.
It was in Johannesburg. They might have used it in Brazil.
In Johannesburg. Okay.
Johannesburg. Yeah.
Okay, in Johannesburg, how it was used as a tool during the Johannesburg for the Youth Summit in Johannesburg. And how it was a healing tool, a transformational tool. So your own artwork as a fine artist, how do you view your own artwork as an expression, as a message or a messenger? What is your own artwork bringing into the world?
You know, I ask myself that question, or I'm in that question just about all the time, either consciously or unconsciously. And, you know, I look at my work, and I did one, it was a drawing, and a mixed media drawing. So that would be, it was graphite and watercolor, 2 different media. So that's mixed media. And it was started out, you know, it was a self-portrait. And I didn't have a name. I was just doing a self-portrait, drawing a human figure. And at the end of it, I looked at that and I noticed, you know, I had included the bottom part of an eagle in flight, the legs and the talons, and maybe a little bit of the wing. A little bit of the wing, I think. But the talons were reaching out and just about to grab my hair, just about to grab me. Just about to grab my
hair. I can tell you what I think that means.
Yeah, you tell me what you think it means, and then I'll tell you if you're
United States is coming to get you, girl.
Pretty much. And
if I'm Canadian, so if it were an image of me, it would be a beaver coming or a maple leaf.
A threatening maple leaf or a beaver. I might have to work a little bit to get the threat in that. But yeah, with this, you know, that symbol, no work needed. And I had the talons were painted red, white, and blue. So it was very clear. And I started on a couple years before, a few years, I was teaching intermediate drawing, and we were doing life drawing. So you're going to draw a portrait, looking in the mirror, no photographs. You have to deal with everything that it takes to do something from life. And so I put it away, and then I pulled it back out. And it was during the time when George Floyd was murdered. And then it was, you know, Breonna Taylor before that, and Ahmaud Arbery, and Sandra Bland, you know, just a whole long line of folks. But this particular time, George Floyd was murdered. And I took it out, and I was just looking, I was enraged, I was grief-stricken, I was just so enraged I couldn't talk. And I looked at it, and I kept, you know, I put it away because I said there's something missing, and I don't know what it is. I might put something away for years. And I pulled it out and looked at it for a while. I said, okay, it's flat. Is there something in here is missing? What in the world is it? Well, when George Floyd was murdered, I just remember picking up a pencil and I just scribbled and dug it into the paper and I scratched it, the eagle, I scribbled it. I just just vented all my fury on that thing. And when I got done, I went, oh yeah, that's what it was. So communication happens, God knows the right moment. What was missing is something that I needed a catalyst. Unfortunately, it was another human being's murder that brought it forth. A catalyst to release that. And when I saw the name of the drawing, which thank God, by the grace of God, I have sold, is Pray, PRAY/PREY, and it's in a book, in the Magic of Modern Art book. It's one of the 2 works that are in the book, and that's the title did not come to me until then. Pray. So frequently, like a lot of artists, my art is about making the invisible visible, and that which has been suppressed, erased, or just flat out omitted. Looking in between the cracks, in between the words that are said, which the truth you'll find it usually in between, in the unspoken. So bringing the unspoken to bear, to life, to making it visible, and just speaking for. I said, I know I'm not the only woman who feels like that. That I am PREY, being female. All you have to do is be female, and to some degree, at any point in time, anywhere, I could become PREY. So it wasn't just me speaking for myself. I have a whole sisterhood of women, and what keeps me well is my prayer, PRAY. But for that, who knows how many times I would have been PREY.
It's interesting. My mind is going back to what you said earlier in the conversation about thousands of years ago. So that 5,000, for 5,000 years, we've had these conversations about artists. And my mind went to ancient Rome and ancient Greece. And when you talked about art being used by many artists as a way of making the invisible visible, having a conversation, essentially an anti-artist conversation, popping up during ancient civilization for the first time is interesting to me, because that could potentially be the first time when human expression in art threatened anybody, right? So if you have a particular power structure and people are making the invisible visible through their artwork and showing the aspects of that structure that the powers that be don't want seen, they're invisible for a reason in that societal structure, right? And so the people who like that societal structure to run the way it's running want those invisible things to stay invisible. So to disempower the people who make those things visible would make sense as a new conversation to bring into the world.
That could have very well been. And what is it I want to say? The creative impulse is mysterious. It's usually mysterious. And wonder, okay, where did that come, this thing you saying, doing, what, writing about, where did that come from? Well, if I go make something, I know, well, if I, make a cup or something like that, okay. I know you get clay or whatever, want to make that thing, see where it comes from. But even the impulse to make is so mysterious. And a lot of us don't have a lot of room for it, for mystery and not knowing. Don't have a lot of room for it. So
Yeah,
we
but
make
do
up
you think
stuff.
that that is do you think that that is a part of modern civilization? Like, do you think that that prehistoric people who were doing cave drawings, you know, drawings on the walls of caves were afraid of the mystery of their drawings?
Well, the people that made them, and the cave drawings and stuff is always conjecture because there's no writing or nobody around to really interpret them. But, even then, the people, as far as, if you overlay civilizations that haven't had a whole lot of Western contact, overlay it as much as you can, which isn't a whole lot, on top of the work of people who made images. And by the way, to some of them, they figured they were women just because of like the handprints were the size of a woman's hand. So they're pretty sure that the artist that did that was a woman. They were generally on the edge of their own societies.
Oh,
They
really?
lived-
Interesting.
Yes, they were usually on the edge, and people
Oh, okay.
so it just seemed to be said, okay, and the conversation they have connection with the spirit world is what people did. And okay, we don't want a whole lot to do with them because we don't want to upset these people since they have this connection that we can't explain, that I don't seem to have. So it looks mysterious and special that way. So the artists that generally in most cultures are on the fringes.
Oh, interesting. I
And
wouldn't have guessed that. That's
yeah,
interesting.
a common thing. And it's gotten, we're so fragmented now that, who can tell, but even artists, just about from the beginning, it seems as though been on the edge. They live on the outskirts of the village and maybe a little bit outside. And they maybe have been the shamans of particular cultures and whatnot, but there were some people looking sideways some of the time at artists.
Well, you have some art that you might be open to sharing with us. Is that true?
Yeah, I have. It's some of my earlier work, and if I could share, do I have the ability to share the screen?
I will give you that ability momentarily. Okay, go ahead.
Let's see. Now, let me see if I got this right here. Remember how to do it. Okay, let's see. It is. Okay. See, so this is some of, I don't know if I can make it scroll. I don't get, can I scroll? Doesn't seem like I can make it scroll. Oh, there it is. So this is some of my pen and ink work.
I'm just going to check in with Joy, our tech support here,
Yeah,
the
I
virtual
don't,
team. It's not
we,
showing on my screen.
Oh, it isn't?
No.
it's not, yeah, it
It
just
says
says
that
you
you've started.
started screen sharing. Did you put the,
Oh,
punch in the two prompts at the bottom, two little squares?
no, I surely did. So stop share,
I'll try it again.
share screen,
Mm-hmm,
share sound, optimize for video clip.
mm-hmm.
That's what I do.
That should do it. Yep,
There we go.
you can
Okay,
see it.
great.
Yep,
Yeah,
great.
Thank you for your help, Joy. That's great.
Really?
No problem.
So this is some of my pen and ink work, 15 million Buffalo Gone. And there's going to be some prints, some fine art, one of a kind prints made of this one.
Can you bring that up full screen?
I have no idea. Let's see. Let's see.
So this is called what, pen and ink, you said?
Yes. So it's ink,
Wow.
it's black ink with a variety of weights of pen on white illustration, white Bristol board. And this is 15 million Buffalo Gone, but one came back.
15 million buffalo gone, but one came back. It's interesting because when I first looked at it, I saw what I thought were zebra and leopard and like that.
So these are, when I'm making this type of work, I don't have any images at all in mind. It's all non-objective, or some people would say abstract. It's only as I was working, I noticed that some things seem to take a recognizable figurative form. And I looked and I said, well, oh heck, it's back. It's just shown up in some other works of art, but I wasn't consciously trying to do that.
It's beautiful. I will say for me, it definitely made me think of an animal presence or
Yes.
animals. Um, Part of it in the lower, it looks like like a Thai dragon, sort of I think it's a Thailand that has those certain kind of images.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, it's really highly I would not like fine art. If I were to list my skills and capacities, like mathematical capacity and athletic capacity and whatever, fine art would be really way down on really way down on the list. Right. So when I look at something like this so intricate, it's really a little bit mind-boggling for me how someone can take a blank piece of paper and start with a blank piece of paper and then end up with something like this.
Yeah, I can get that. And you distill it, creating the summit really wasn't that much different. Is one of the things that the creative process is the creative process. Now, how you use it and what you intend to bring forth with it, the differentiation can appear there, but standing in the unknown, not knowing, okay, I don't know what to do, then just do something. Okay, I'm going to do something. And then I'm going to do something else. And give up the attachment to will it work or not, just do it. And then you get to see at a certain point work or not work. So the creation of the summit was let's see, like
Blues for Daddy-O. I really hear what you're saying about the creative summit. It really is, talking about stepping into that space of the unknown. People talk about being in the zone creatively, being guided when they're in the zone, or having, I'm not saying that these are just things that I've heard people say or have read that people have said about when they are creating or creative, that the pen was led by someone else. It just came through them, things like that people sometimes say. This is gorgeous. So, Blues for Daddy-O. So I see a man in the lower right-hand corner. Looks like he's carrying a chair.
And this is a mixed media collage.
Okay.
So one of the things and this is very modern, early 20th century, and people who are not wealthy, who are poor, have been doing this for millennia. You use what's at hand.
Right.
And you make it do things that they were never intended to do, but you make them do. Make do. You make them do things that they weren't originally designed to do. And that is really the basis of pretty much, a lot of my work. So this is go through magazines and just cut out things that are attractive to me and and put them together, draw on them, paint on them, and see what happens.
Well,
and
I'll tell you the story I'm creating for this piece. Do you want to hear it?
Sure.
Okay, so here's the story I'm creating for this piece. So Daddy-O is in the lower right-hand corner, and he is in fact blue. He's emotionally blue, and the color on him is blue. And he's carrying something. So there's the chair and whatever he's carrying in his left hand. So he's kind of burdened. So I'm creating the story that he has been burdened by work. He's been burdened by work, but the burden by work that he has taken on actually created, and I'm going to speak that the larger image, yellow and pink, is the image of a young child who is living a colorful, beautiful life, and living that colorful, beautiful life because Daddy-O was willing to carry those burdens. So Daddy-O created a beautiful world for this young child to live into.
That's a beautiful story.
Yes.
I would have never come up with that. It's one of the great
That's
things
my story
about making art is I don't have to know anything about it. And how I learned about a lot of my art is I listen to people. And I listen and they say things and I went, oh yeah, that's that too. So, you know, people tell me what I've done because I frequently don't know. And that's the communal nature of participating in art. It is not a passive experience. I mean, for people to involve themselves like you just did. And think about it, once your creative imagination got incited by this piece of artwork, who knows where that incitement, excitement might take you in furtherance of your own vision or somewhere in your own life. And then, you know, this piece of artwork has done its job. It's out in the world doing something. So, you know, the potential for God-given potential being unleashed, I intend for that to happen. I pray for it to happen through my art. People will get something that
let's
only
do one more.
They may know. Now let me see.
Yeah, let's do one more.
Let's see. This is the pray.
Oh, yeah. Red, white, and blue on those talons.
I wasn't trying to be subtle.
Coming for you, girl. Oh, you're serious.
And, you know, people, it's just interesting, people's reactions to this. I said, this is what intense concentration looks like. I'm looking in a mirror, trying to draw myself.
You look young. I would say you were like in middle school in this picture.
Well, okay.
You look young and serious to me.
Okay. And there's a hummingbird here. The juxtaposition between the hummingbird and the eagle.
So let's do one more because we'd already talked about this one.
Yeah, but the hummingbird I didn't say. Hummingbird is, in Western art at any rate, and a symbol of the presence of God. Hummingbirds are no match for eagles. Well, an eagle couldn't catch one anyway because the hummingbirds move so fast and they're little. Who would want that? So whisperings in my ear in the face of being prey.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
To whom will I listen? Whose word will I take? This is the other one that's in the book, in Magic of Modern Art.
Okay, so this is prophecy.
Prophecy. So this is mixed media collage. And the hummingbird appears again. And it just shapes.
Where's the hummingbird? I see a blue jay.
See up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hummingbird. Okay.
That's a blue jay. I'm glad you said what that was. Because I didn't know.
I'm Torontonian, so our baseball team are the Blue Jays.
Oh, okay.
I will say the large image looks like the shape of a heart to me. Like an actual, you know, shape of a, you know, not the symbol of a heart, but an actual heart.
Yes. And it was not intentional.
Okay.
It turned out like that. And you know, and I just being with it, say, okay, this is paint that I scraped off my palette. dried acrylic paint and cutouts from magazines, also paint. And these are cutouts. And it does stand away from the paper a little bit. So this is,
Well, I'm looking for the story.
well, what's the story? Jackie, what's the story? You tell
I'm
me.
looking for the story. The heart looks a little, the heart looks a little bit patchwork, right? A little bit patchwork, like maybe it has been mended, so it might be a heart that was broken but has been mended. And help and care is on the way. So the birds are flying towards it. The blue jay and the hummingbird are flying towards this mended heart to provide love, care, and support. That's my story.
That's so wonderful. Fabulous. I love that story. That's cool.
Thank you, Aloma, for sharing this artwork. This is
You're
great.
welcome.
So for those who are listening through the audio podcast, you heard our descriptions. You won't be able to see them, but you at least heard the stories of what I think those images represent.
And I'll put in the chat before we go the link to the website.
Oh, that's great. So we'll have the link to the website for anybody who's interested to be able to go and look at all of the artwork that's available there to see. And I'm assuming some of it is available to purchase too.
Some of it is.
Wonderful. Okay. So let me ask you, Aloma, is there anything you would like to share with us or say this evening that we haven't touched on?
Oh, goodness gracious. This one thing about the seasons of one's life. How does the declaration show up, the manifestation of the declaration show up as we move from season to season in our lives? Now, I'm retired and I just celebrated my Jubilee year. 70 is a Jubilee year in the Old Testament. And it's about the being mindful of and speaking to the Babylonian exile and coming out of exile. And that's just so, it's what, 70, when you, 70, what is it, platinum?
What is it, 70, right?
Yeah, 70.
Yeah.
50 is a Jubilee year. And about every 7 years is a Jubilee year. So, it doesn't fall on, 70 isn't exactly in that 7-year sequence if you start with 50, but it's a special event because of the Babylonian exile. And, just looking at life, what is being asked of me in this season of my life, coming out of exile, the first half of life ways of being, which were great for the first half of life. Not great in the second half. So, reliving, you see people, forever trying to be young in age that they're not. So how do I, what is being asked from me now? How can the declaration empower me in the second half of my life? Having conversations about legacy and all of the life experiences I've been blessed to have. How do I remain fertile and keep generating, and what, for whom, what potential is there waiting to be unleashed in my life and the lives of others? I'm a baby boomer. It's still alive. We are not done yet. So how can we empower? How could the declaration empower us to be life-giving in ways that the world cannot live without in the second half of life, after coming out of exile? Freedom from things that shackled me in the first half of my life, coming out of that, really, how can the declaration empower that?
Yeah, that's a great inquiry. A great inquiry. And I will say this, you are the embodiment of Black don't crack. I'm not a baby boomer, I'm Generation X, but I look forward to not cracking.
Thank you.
As the years go by. So we do have a last question that we typically ask. And I'm just going to see if I can pull it up here. So, and it's, we sometimes give a choice. So let me see if I'll give you a choice today or not. Okay. Here are the two questions. One is a little bit outdated, but I think I can still ask it. So you can pick one. The first one is, what are the biggest things you've learned about yourself as a result of the pandemic? The second one is, what are 3 wishes that you have for the world right now?
Mm. Good questions. Good heavens. I learned about myself during the pandemic. Oh gosh, you're both so rich. I can't choose. You pick one. I can't choose. Oh.
Okay, I will go with the 3 wishes. What are 3 wishes that you have for the world right now?
Okay. Not, one wish is that we will not miss the opportunity, that this fragmentation and the disintegration of reality, in quotes, as we know it, that we not miss the opportunity, that all of this, as it is, brings for transformation, grounded in repentance and forgiveness, asking for and giving forgiveness, and anteing up to, owning stuff, telling the truth, the stank naked truth of it, that we not miss these opportunities that are being presented. So that's one. And that that again, it's in the way of opportunity, that we will accept the opportunity to take up. There's one of the first commands in Christian scripture in the Old Testament is Genesis 2:15, to tend the garden and keep it. That we will tend the garden and keep it with the love and the creativity and the passion that the Creator, in which the Creator brought it forth. So that's number 2. And number 3, let's see, what would that be? And in the, the bringing forth of 1 and 2, to really participate fully, do the work to find out, each of us do our work to find out, who is this that God made, this mystery called fill in your name. And I'm created for such times as these. What am I created to bring forth? That we all engage individually and collectively in that discernment, alone and with one another, and allow for joy and play and grieving, all of it to be present in that discovery process and the inquiry. Those are the 3 I can think of.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, Aloma, for being here, for kicking off our 2nd season of the International Black Summit Interview Podcast.
Thank you so much for asking me. This has been such fun, and just had thoughts that I haven't had before, especially about my work. And those 3 questions are good questions to ask oneself every day.
Absolutely.
And thank you for everybody who came.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's watching on YouTube or who's listening on our podcast platform or listening on Spotify. Thank you for being here with us. We hope that you will consider joining us. We have a free session every Sunday evening at 7:15 p.m. Eastern. If you're interested in joining us free via Zoom, just let us know. We also have prerequisite courses that we eventually one day courses that we uh, offer from time to time, as well as our annual summit event, the first full weekend in August, that we hope you would consider joining us with. It's a transformational experience. Your life would never be the same.
True,
Please,
true.
Jenna. We welcome you to join us. Welcome, welcome. And we hope to see you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.